Welcome. Today, I am so excited to bring my dear friend Bianca, who is, first of all, she's an amazing human. Like that's basically what I can say. Like I'm so amazed by you. We've had so many cool experiences, trekking the jungles of Costa Rica barefoot, and waterfalls and working together on your amazing projects. And I'm just such a fan, and I'm so happy that people get to listen to the knowledge that lives in your brain about psychedelics, about kundalini, spirituality. So welcome, Bianca.
It is an absolute honor to be here. Thank you, Ari, for having me. And yes, it's been incredible to have this friendship, to grow in business, to grow in life, to grow in spirituality together, in yoga, like all the things. And I just admire you, and I'm always constantly inspired by you.
Thank you. Well, enough about me. So tell us a little bit. I mean, you have a very long trajectory of accolades and certifications. Maybe take us into a abridged version that goes from, your nursing all the way to being one of Miami's psychedelic leaders.
Thank you. So it's an honor to share my story because in sharing, it allows others to share their vulnerable voice and their journey. And it's taken a lot to get here. So I wanted to be a doctor at a very young age, at the age of 7, when I found out about my mother's health. And that has been a lifelong journey. And I found out about nurse practitioner, and I was like, I'm going to be a nurse practitioner because I know I'm going the holistic route. Like that's where I knew at a very young age. And then functional integrative medicine became very popular. So I was like, I'm going to become a nurse practitioner. I'm going to bring in the psychology plus the because I'm also a psychology major, bring that together and merge that together. And that was about 15 years ago. And so I've been really just like on this mission because I started understanding who I was through yoga.
Right. Magic. Right? That's where the magic happens.
Yes. At the age of 14, like I knew, I was diagnosed with ADHD. I was borderline bipolar because bipolar runs in my family. And so I knew I was like, I'm going to study all I can about mental health and really apply myself. And at that age, I thought I was going to be a psychiatrist. And then I was at Columbia. I was doing my post-bac pre-med, and my psychiatrist was a nurse practitioner.
Oh.
And one of my favorites out of all of them. And I was like, wow, I want to become a nurse practitioner. And so I changed trajectory and ended up going to NYU and becoming a nurse. And then I worked in the medical spa arena and realized very shortly, like, this was not my my calling with the Botox and Juvederm being, very harmful chemicals. And so I really wanted to stay in the holistics. And I got out of an engagement, and and that allowed me to have the biggest spiritual awakening. One of the biggest spiritual awakenings of my life was getting out of an engagement, doing Landmark, doing Tony Robbins, and then realizing, okay, I'm going to go and get my master's in nursing as a family nurse practitioner. So at the same time, I was very I was teaching, I was traveling for retreats, teaching retreats. And so I've been in this world for a very long time, and through yoga and nursing and, nurse practitioner, the medical world, and now psychedelics, because psychedelics have been a huge part of my awakening and healing and really getting to the root of PTSD. And so for about almost a year, a little over a year and a half, I've been working with ketamine, bringing that into my practice with my clients. And it's amazing because you can give this medicine to people that are on antidepressants, on medications, and there's a huge population of people that really need psychedelic healing. So
yeah,
especially when they're at treatment-resistant depression. And I feel like there's a lot of functional treatment-resistant depression people, and I was one of them for very, very long. And so ketamine allows for that psychedelic healing. And so it's been a very long journey to get here. And I'm super honored to share my story and how I got here.
I love it. So I have some questions because, the ketamine, it's a pharma-based drug, but also you do a lot of integration and you bring in the kundalini aspect. I mean, a lot of your brand is that kundalini, psychedelic awakening.
Yeah.
And so tell me, what is this fusion that you're creating with the spirituality as a baseline for how we live, and the psychedelics, whether it's ketamine, whether it's also like ayahuasca, a lot of these sacred plants who have healing properties, which maybe you can give us a little bit of a understanding about the differences of all the different modalities. But tell me about this union, literally this yoga between the psychedelics and the kundalini.
Yeah, I mean, I was very stuck on the idea, like, I'm going to be yoga. All the way yoga, meditation, not do the psychedelics. Like, I can do it all through yoga. And then I had a major breakup and my mother was on her deathbed. And it was like, okay, now is the time to open myself up to psychedelics. And that's when I surrendered to grandmother ayahuasca. And thank God I did, because I was in my master's, I was taking care of my mother that was failure to thrive, I was teaching, I was working. I mean, I was, barely getting any rest, like 3 hours of sleep
Right.
for many, many years to get there, and like literally burnt out. And the ayahuasca allowed me to rise through all of that. And thank God, because I just wanted to go in a hole. I wanted to go in a cave and not be seen and take like a month or two off from life. Michael Capone was kind of my mentor in that and led me to the ayahuasca. And I'm so grateful because I still have friends from that ceremony that are lifelong friends, just going through that
crazy experience. Yeah.
And we were all wanting and like calling in this medicine together. We were wanting something deeper that would really get to the root of what we were dealing with emotionally, spiritually, physically. So I got into the whole ayahuasca and, I was so fascinated by the healing properties of this medicine and how I could just release like 1,000 elephants off my chest in one ceremony and not even realize that I was holding on to so much density and so much pain and so much suffering. And a lot of it is ancestral and familial. And so you don't even understand our spiritual nature, I felt, until I actually became very intimate with the plant medicines. And I'm so grateful that I had like Jayadev, because, none of my teachers were about the psychedelics.
Right.
And Jayadev was like, go ahead. If you're being called to it, like allow yourself to go down that journey. And I'm so happy that I had a kundalini teacher that was like, okay with me, because I really needed that mentorship at that time. I was like 31 or something like that. I forget exactly, but it's been an 8-year, journey with this medicine. And then also I've been in the yoga world for about 25 years, and that's been pivotal for my ADHD, for my mood regulation, for my mental health. And thankfully, it didn't allow me to go into like more of a bipolar nature and allow me to really focus my energy and use that energy to create rather than to destroy myself. Because at times I really was very destructive and cruel to myself. So through yoga and through the plant medicines, I was able to break out of my own prison of trauma, connect to nature, connect back to my true nature, which is everything. That's why we're here.
Yeah.
And so I think I kind of answered your question, but
yeah, no, it's going to take us into the next question that I have, because a lot of people are very new to understanding, psychedelics, and it's just kind of been coming up in the conversations, right? In magazines and articles, whereas before it was kind of like this underground. You had to be invited, or you had to know about the subject.
Totally underground.
It was totally underground.
We were going into apartments, into people's homes in Miami, 40 of us doing medicine, puking, all of us. And now I would never do that in a million years. I'd travel to Costa Rica. But it was hilarious because it was the whole spiritual community was doing it together. Yeah. And it was so magical. It was, really coming together as a tribe. Yeah. But yeah, it's been a journey.
So take us a little bit into the scientific aspect. What would you say are the top 3 psychedelic medicines that are being used now, more common?
So right now, I actually work with ayahuasca, with ketamine, and with psilocybin. And those are my favorite medicines to work with. I also love MDMA, or sassafras, which is the natural form of MDMA, which I love as well. But I personally, with clients, work with those top 3 because I think that ayahuasca is for the warrior. If you're ready to really go into your mental, just go to the depths of yourself. And that really takes a level of spiritual maturity and understanding your body and understanding the connection to your mood regulation and whether you're able to take ayahuasca. Some
Right.
people, it's not a good route. It's dimethyltryptamine. It's a psychedelic. We have it within ourselves, right?
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
it comes from the plant and the vine and the leaf of the ayahuasca plant. And they brew it for many hours because it can be poisonous. So they brew it and they make a drink out of it, right? And whether, so I'll be facilitating and integrating for One Heart Journey in March for an ayahuasca retreat. So it's an 8-week container, and you have to apply, we have to look at your medications, everything. You aren't able to take antidepressants. So if you're on MAOI inhibitors or any antidepressants or benzodiazepines, this medicine isn't for you. And so that's why ketamine is so amazing, because it allows people that really want that psychedelic experience but are on the chemicals still, on the medications, to have that in the clinic, supervised by me, and we prepare you. We then have, it's either 3 to 6 sessions depending on how the medicine works in the body.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have integration, which is the most important part, where we really get clear. It's coaching, it's therapy, it's all of my medicines that I've used to heal my body and my mind, body, and spirit. So kundalini, somatic work, energy healing. It's just the list goes on and on and on, because I've been in this work for so long. It's like, okay, now it's just coming through me, and I'm an intuitive healer. So really, I get the downloads. Really, my clients coming in, I have dreams about them. I have downloads about them even before I meet them. This journey of psychedelic work has allowed me to really come into my intuitive and psychic powers, especially with the kundalini and combining that. But it takes to having that integration, which is really important. And then I love getting people off the ketamine and onto the mushrooms, or doing a combination, because they work really well together. With the ketamine, you have the dopamine and the serotonin peak, and then it comes down. So if you bring in the mushrooms, it helps to have a smoother,
like a regulation,
a more regulated, smoother journey. And so bringing together all of them, it's whatever you're called to, really. Like the mushrooms will call you, the ayahuasca will call you, and then ketamine also calls you. It called me, and I had no idea. Like I was like, "What is this chemical?" I thought it was a dirty party drug.
Yeah, high school party drug.
Yes, exactly. So I was totally against it, and it really took being in surrender and being at the dark night of the soul that I was on my knees, and ketamine was coming through, and so I was like, "All right, I guess it's time for the ketamine." And I'm so glad that I am on this journey, and it's allowed me to speak about psychedelics finally, because ketamine is a legal psychedelic. It was approved in 2019 for treatment-resistant depression. So most of my clients have been on medication for 15, 20 years, and they're still, not having joy and love and, a higher vibration. The ketamine allows for neuroplasticity in the brain, which is so powerful.
Wow. Okay.
All the psychedelics do.
Right.
But ketamine, if you look at the antidepressants right now and the benzodiazepine and all of the medications that are available in Western medicine, they're not really that helpful. Some of my clients have been on them, and they're not going to get off of them. It becomes part of who they are. And that's okay, right? Like, we can't judge anybody and where they're at. And if it makes them happy, like, thank God for these medicines,
Right.
But if they have a calling, it's really amazing to use the ketamine, because it has that antidepressant effect. And it allows for dissociation, which I thought dissociation was negative. Like, you don't want to dissociate, right?
Yeah,
like,
right. That's immediately why I was like, well, why do you want to dissociate? Don't you want to integrate, assess, like kind of all those things? But maybe at some point you just kind of want to be like, get out of
your identity, get out of your ego. And so that's what the ketamine does, is it allows for this dissociation to release the higher brain, release the, separate yourself from the prefrontal cortex, which is your thinking mind, your identity, your ego, right? And so when you're in that, especially when you're in trauma or pain or, mood issues, depression, anxiety, to get out of that is one of the best things that can happen. Because you have this space, the medicine opens up this space for you to breathe, for you to remember who you are, which is this light being, this spiritual being, you know, this connection to oneness, to God, to something greater than yourself. And in that space of dissociation, you're allowing for some deep healing. And it's been miraculous to watch, you know, people come out of depression and anxiety and suicide and major issues in a very short period of time. And then they don't need it after. And maybe they need a booster, maybe 6 months or a year after, but it's not something you have to take on the regular, consistently.
Yeah.
And
like you're not dependent on it.
Yes. Right.
Which
exactly.
is wonderful.
And that's the key point, right? Like with any of the psychedelics, make sure you're doing it with a trained professional that really understands. I was going to say, that was going to be one of my next questions. It's like, you know, if somebody, whether listens to this today or has been curious about psychedelics, like, you know, who do they reach out to? Because I did mushrooms when I was in, you know, many years. But, but that's more like a, you know, like spiritual, like, mushrooms are such a great medicine to start with.
They're beautiful. They're gentle, right? But like if I were to say, well, I would like to really work on my lineage traumas, like, you know, there's so much obviously baggage that everybody carries. Yeah. I'm not going to just be like, you know, Amazon ayahuasca.
No.
Like how do you find, I mean, we talked about like One Heart, but like are there trained professionals like throughout the United States? Is there an organization?
So there are many, and you know, I really prefer doing the medicine in Costa Rica or doing it in nature, in the jungle, you know, in Peru, where the medicine is really birthed, because that is where she thrives. Yeah, that's where she blossoms. And America, the energy is really dense right now, and like you feel that, and I feel that, and it's really I don't do medicine in the United States. Maybe it'll happen. I can't say never, but like for now, I'm really sticking to my promise to myself, because I get really open, and I really want to go to the depths of my being and have the most healing experience. And I find that you can do that in Costa Rica. In Costa Rica, it is legal. That's why I also do it in Costa Rica. I don't want to be here in the United States, like, you know, as a medical professional and everything. So. We have to be really smart, and we have to know the people, making sure that you really have a connection with the teacher, the shaman, the medical provider. Yeah, you know, feeling safe. Make sure you feel safe. If you don't feel safe or you doubt it for a second, they're probably not the person for you. And you know, I didn't understand this aspect of the medicine journey until, you know, I was in unsafe journeys. And you do get to a place where you go to your depths of fear, your depths of being. So make sure that you have people that can like have your back, that you know that are going to be there for the right reasons and the right intentions, and that serve you and your highest self. Yeah. Yeah. That's really important, because I know, for example, when, like, let's just keep it something as simple as like yoga, right? When you go into a class that's, whether it's like advanced breath work, like, it can be very frightening. Yes. A lot of insecurities come up, a lot of anxiety comes up. So just imagine, right? Breath work is something fairly safe. But like we've led in my retreats, we've led, you know, holotropic breathing, and there's massive amounts of emotions and repressed traumas that come up just through breath work. So now like, 10 times not that. Just it's you're literally having a psychedelic experience with yourself. Like the breath actually activates, and the lungs activate the most release of DMT from your pineal gland. So that's why I love teaching my psychedelic activation, because it allows for the same kind of experience that you would have on these plants or on ketamine. And we have that within ourselves, which is so powerful. But yes, it's a very intimate space, because they can get tetany where they, you know, or they get really scared and they get in their trauma. And so, yes, you have to really be with a trained professional that knows what they're doing, that literally has experienced it for themselves, to know how to hold space, that are embodied, right? And I feel like we're in this like trend of all of these people just getting certified and becoming teachers, and like it's insane. I know. I'm like, maybe you guys can't see it on the podcast, but I rolled my eyes, and but it's very true. Like, you know, a weekend certification to become a practitioner of something that can really, I don't want to say mess, but affect deeply somebody's, like, you don't know what people come with.
Like you meet me and you're like, oh, she's good, right? But like you don't know if I have crazy amounts of traumas and, undealt with stuff. And it's like, oh, let me just take you through this like breath practice and the demons come out.
Right.
And you're like, oh, I just did a weekend certification. And
And that's another thing, like making sure where you get your yoga certification
yeah.
from and who you're because it's become cult-like.
Yeah.
I mean, I've experienced that yoga to the people. There was a lot of abuse going on and it wasn't good. They were taking advantage of us and we had no idea. And it was almost like a abuse of power. And they actually ended yoga to the people. They were like one of the biggest yoga studios. But yeah, it was not a really safe and loving container. And you don't know it until you're drinking the Kool-Aid and you're coming in your traumas are coming out and you're healing and you're like, okay, this is my family because we awaken together. And so you have this like trauma bonding and it's like abuse of power that can happen in all these areas. In yoga, if you look at all the teachers, most of them have raped their students or, it's a thing. And then you find out about these shamans that are misusing their power and also, it's so you really want to make sure. And so that's why I really love One Heart. And I'm so grateful because I grew up with Gracia and Jesus, and like Jesus was one of my first shamans. My first ceremonies was Jesus and Omar, and then from there, Gracia sat with Gracia. We grew up together in this. Like it was like, so that's how I found my tribe of people that I was, really wanting to sit with in medicine and really evolve together and grew up together in this movement.
Yeah.
So if you're really wanting to know about some facilities, like I would love to share. If you're being called, reach out to me, send me a message. Like it's really important to sit with the right shaman, the right medical provider, the right teachers that have really embodied the wisdom, because it's you're not going to get this over a 200-hour certification.
No, absolutely not. And like I have a kind of like a rule of thumb, like don't teach anything unless you've been practicing it for at least a year.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Like, I think that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
That's not too much to ask.
Well, really, like feel it in your body. Like take in the wisdom.
Right.
Sit with yourself. Sit with your traumas. Reveal what needs to be healed. And then you can come and really and provide a safe container for your students because you've cultivated that safety within yourself.
Yeah. And so for those of you who are listening to this, Bianca is going to be teaching, and she has a beautiful exhibitor spot at the Yoga Expo coming up March 18th here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So you guys can check out the website, theyogaexpo.org, but you'll be able to go to Bianca's Kundalini psychedelic activation class. We just had it in LA and like, wow. Like we had rave reviews and like I remember like seeing you out of your class and you were like glowing and everybody was kind of like floating out of this class and it just felt so like light and beautiful but like powerful.
Yeah, it was one of the most powerful classes that I've actually ever taught. Like hundreds of people. We went deep. They yelled for probably like 3 minutes straight. And if I hadn't stopped them, they would have continued. Like we were doing a major Olympia, going really, really, really deep into breath work, into transformational breath work. And it's very much an intuitive flow at this point. Like whatever Spirit's telling me to teach, that's what I teach. I prepare a little bit, but like really it's when I'm there and then feeling out the people, feeling out what's needed. This Kundalini psychedelic activation is something that I've really cultivated the last 3 years during the pandemic when everything just went crazy, or pandemic, wherever you're at.
Wherever you're at, just throwing that out there.
And it was a very intense time for everyone.
Yeah.
It's been a huge global awakening, what is happening. And so Kundalini psychedelic activation was my way of serving my community and helping to really release a lot of the things, the heaviness, the fear. It was at an all-time high. Nobody knew what was going to happen. It was very much like everyone was kind of like gripping.
Yeah.
And so this method allows you to really go deeply within yourself, release emotional pain, emotional blocks, pain in your body, and have a psychedelic experience with yourself. No psychedelics are used in this
in the class,
experience.
which is great. And that's why I love, you, because you you make it so accessible to people, right? People don't need to necessarily, go to Costa Rica and, take ayahuasca and be on a massive purging. They could start with breath.
Yes.
And they can start with like tapping into like spiritual, divine wisdom versus, having to be like, oh my God, I need to do all these things. It's like, start here. It's such a layered approach. Like, start here. This is like simple. It's not easy, right? It's simple. You just need to breathe.
But is it simple?
I mean, fair. Like,
Right.
compared to like going to the jungle and like drinking ayahuasca or like having to go to a clinic, like in that's what I'm saying. It's not easy.
I've had some of my biggest like awakenings in trainings in yoga and breath work, like blasted open, and that like we're like ayahuasca or like a major psychedelic experience. So I think that yes, for sure, I would have never gotten into the psychedelics if I hadn't had the basis of understanding how to cultivate a safe space in myself, how to breathe, how to connect to my heart.
Yeah. Because
once you have those tools, then you can really grow and learn and how to use the energy rather than have resistance to it. And, if you're not emotionally in a space, especially with ayahuasca, I don't recommend to just go right into ayahuasca.
Yeah.
Like really create a practice, spiritual practice for yourself, and have that experience with yourself and love yourself. And, it's a journey. And I love that, for many years, I didn't have psychedelics in my practice with clients. It was just purely using very powerful kundalini kriyas, breath work, meditation, Luna fast. All of these things are ceremonies in themselves. And I think that those things are very much needed before even touching the psychedelics.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, like I said, that's why I really appreciate, your way of doing it, because it feels really layered and it feels really accessible and safe, right? Because you can get a huge download, huge awakening just with the breath and the spiritual practices. And like, that might be enough. You might not need to do ketamine. You might not need to do psilocybin. It's like, we're not here to also be like, everybody should be on psychedelics. Like, right? Everybody should at least do something that tears you open and lets you get, the healing and the cleansing, the spiritual cleansing, the lineage, the familial, all that baggage that we come with. Like at some point, do you guys ever clean out your closet? Like, it's like your spiritual closet. You got to clean it out. So how do you do it? You do it through, getting on your mat, sitting, meditating, breathing, understanding the power of these practices, but actually doing them.
Doing them. Creating that, commitment.
Yeah.
Commitment is the first, and Yogi Bhajan talks about commitment being the first thing that you need to do to create happiness in your life. Mm-hmm. So committing to yourself is everything. It's
everything. Everything. Actually, yesterday I was talking to a client, in the business coaching, and she was like, what happens when I get squirrel brain? Like, I digress and I have these, and I go, how committed are you? That was it. I was like, how committed are you? She's like, I'm committed. I was like, no, how committed are you? Like, how committed are you to saying like, hey, new idea that's going to pull me away, or like fear that's going to deter me, or right? Like, it goes back to your level of commitment.
And if you've cultivated that self-mastery before doing the medicine, then you can use it to really awaken yourself instead of going into like a black, dark hole.
Yeah.
You're able to really cultivate the wisdom before to provide you with the skills and the training and the internal understanding of how to use this medicine. And the yoga, that's why they all go together, right? Like even in the Rig Vedas, they have this, they talk about soma, and that was psychedelic. Psychedelics have been being used for thousands and thousands of years. And so I'm really grateful that now I can be an activist of these psychedelics, because for many years I couldn't talk about it.
Couldn't talk about it.
Yeah. And my family thought I was going crazy. And they thought I was like taking drugs, and they didn't understand it. They were seeing, me come back, and, because when you're going through it, it's like all of this stuff comes up.
Yeah.
Especially and with yoga. Like it's not like It's like you do the yoga for it to all come up, and sometimes you aren't in your highest because you're literally transforming, and sometimes you have to go back down to come back up. It's not just like a
linear
straight
path.
line.
No. So one thing I want to leave everybody with is if you are still curious about learning more about psychedelics, Bianca and I, well, she created it, but I helped her
Yes,
put it
she
together. Your guide.
Yes. So I didn't even mention Ari has been my business coach. She's my first business coach. I love her so much. I'm so grateful. And I picked her because she embodies the you have your family, you have you're an amazing leader in Miami, a yogi. I've seen you just rise in these and just so many arenas and own it. And I was like, I want that. I was so inspired by you. And we were in the same circles, the yoga, the doTERRA, the cleansing, same values, same ethics, really focused, determined, let's get it in life kind of energy.
Yes.
And so grateful for your support and your love and just the container. Because, when you're building a business, it really brings up your darkest fears.
Yes. Yes. It does.
And so coming into my brightness and coming into my power has not been the easiest because it's opening up these traumatic experiences and sharing it with people. I literally go through the trauma again and start it's interesting, this journey, know. And so thank you for just being a amazing friend and guide and leader, and your wisdom. And so now we have the psychedelic guide, which I'm super excited. I'm going to be really promoting it next week on my channels, on my Instagram, on my Facebook. And my website's going to be coming out very soon. It's taken a little bit.
That's okay.
But we're almost there. So it's it's been so amazing to be on this journey of, transformation and really owning it in the business world.
Yeah. And so in the show notes, you guys will put Bianca's link tree, so then that way they can just access all your links. The website,
it's all there.
Yeah.
Right now.
So we'll share that. And I really encourage, those of you who are wanting to learn more, to reach out to Bianca. She's like a wealth of knowledge. I mean, you heard, from being at NYU, getting a nurse practitioner's, master's degree, to facilitating retreats and, all the things. We could just make this very long list of amazing things that you can help people with. So I would definitely suggest you guys reach out to Bianca, learn more about her, and really if you are in the psychedelic curious space, be safe. Just be safe, be in a trusted space, be with people that really love you and want to see your healing, because, there's a lot of pop-up shamans and a lot of, there really is. So you want to make sure that you do your due diligence. And like I said, Bianca's not going to steer you wrong. So go ahead and connect with her, click on the show notes, come to Miami or to Fort Lauderdale, March 18th, experience her amazing class. The Yoga Expo, it's the largest yoga conference in the United States. And I'm blessed to be the CEO and the owner. So I get to bring these really exciting and really cool classes, to you so that you can experience.
And the best teachers and the best vendors. And you've been in this for a long time.
For a long time.
It's amazing. Yeah. And in Miami too. You are. So this is going to be an exciting, I'm super, because this is home, you know? You get to bring all of your people, all of the people that, it's just amazing. It's a family.
Yeah. Yeah. Super special. So I'm so thankful that you are here and that you came to talk, and I love you so much. And I'm so excited to see the greatness that, we keep creating.
It's such an honor, Ari. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for spreading such powerful wisdom and information to your community, and just being a leader and showing what's possible.
Yes, love it. We're gonna
close it up on that.
Love you so much. I love you. All right, bye everybody.
Bye,
subscribe
everyone.
And share. Bye.
Yes.